for Animal Rebellion. Myself and Harley will be leading you through this. So I'm just going to go straight into what is Animal Rebellion, just a little reminder for ourselves. Yes, and it's going to be recorded. So if anybody doesn't want to be on the recording, do clip your camera off. That's totally fine. But we're going to record it for everyone to see. So where was I, Harley? I was welcoming everybody. So happy to be here. And we've got some exciting stuff to look at. So I'm just going to start with like a reminder about who we are, who Animal Rebellion is. So Animal Rebellion is a mass movement that uses non-violent civil disobedience to bring about a transition to a just and sustainable plant-based food system, to halt mass extinction, alleviate the worst effects of climate breakdown, and ensure justice for animals. So that involves animal and climate justice, global justice, system change, and the fact that we are grounded in community. If we move on here, I'm now going to go on to what is our strategy. So who can I see there? So our strategy is, if we look at this triangle, and forgive me if I'm rushing through this, my first time doing this. So Harley, like I said before, you're welcome to jump in any moment and just add things into this because I'm new to it. So here we have the way we put this together. We've got our tactics, we've got our campaigns, we've got our strategic milestones and our strategic objective. So our tactics can change. They can be all kinds of different things. They can involve campaigns or always non-violent disruption. They can involve sacrifice, or they could be messaging. They could involve disruption of different places, but they always involve respect. And all different tactics can be run in different campaigns. So we could have two campaigns, as you can see here, running towards one strategic milestone, but that milestone is always about our strategic objective. So our strategic objective is a just, sustainable, plant-based food system across the UK. And I'm going to get to, these are the things that it will involve and the things we have to reach. So a change in the political weather, raising public awareness about the crucial need to shift to the UK to a plant-based food system. That is shifting the Overton window. And does everybody know what the Overton window is? Yeah, brilliant. All right. So that a transition to a plant-based food system is synonymous with the ending of the climate crisis. We don't want anything to be mentioned about the climate crisis without the animal agriculture being part of the conversation. So that's metrics, public opinion, media using the phrase. And that actually, although it isn't media, I have seen the phrase being used on social media platforms. And I do believe that I hadn't seen it before Animal Rebellion began. So I feel quite proud of that. And that's the structural focus of movement. So two, the phrase plant-based food system and that desire and that demand needs to become a dominant part of the climate movement. So that's movements like Greenpeace and others to take a strong position on it and make it part of their campaign. Animal Rebellion can strongly ally with these movements. It needs to become part of the political discourse. So we have individual MPs changing and their voting habits changing. We have major political parties included in their manifestos for things like subsidies, absolutely, and so on. And we need to be getting the government to include animal agriculture in all climate talks and agree to that is a major contributor to the climate crisis. So having done all those things, we then come to climate movement is successful in its aims. Then we have a citizens' assembly or a major government action. So excuse me, I drank some, what is it, that tea? Not nutmeg, it's the other one, it's that spicy tea. It begins with an N. Anyway, I drank that just before. Chai, I have chai. And it's amazing. Delicious. But it's given me like a, it's given me one like a throat. So So now I'm going to pass on to Harley.
Thank you so much, Sammy, and thanks for going over that. I think, also we might be able to hear an echo from me. So I don't know, James, if you're downstairs, you might need to shut a door. There we go. Thanks so much for that, Sammy. I think it's really important to kind of ground ourselves in this before we kind of get into things like the strategy update, because this is our strategy and what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve. So before we kind of move into this month and kind of what we have been working on and like what teams have been working on around the organization, I'm going to just briefly touch on what we talked about last month. So in March, we did a strategy update as well. They're going to be monthly. And in that, we talked about the strategy consultation, which was done in December, and kind of these major themes that came out of the strategy consultation. And, these are themes that we've been basing strategy development around, because, these came out from many conversations with almost all the circles in Animal Rebellion of things that we wanted to work on in 2021. So just a quick reminder of what those kind of key themes were, getting wins in the media, mobilizing, visioning the future, growing as an organization, so internally, having more full-time, part-time volunteers, getting campaign wins, going global, so increasing our support for global groups, and being connected, so forming coalitions and groups like that. So just a quick reminder of that, and also what we talked about last month at the start of March. I can't believe it was a month ago. Was this kind of rough timeline which was presented as this potential what 2021 might look like. And this was March to May, being this kind of rebirth and spectacle and mobilization, seeing some big actions starting to happen again. Having G7 happen in June, and maybe something like a summer camp in July and August, and then COP at the end of the year, as well as the council campaign and local groups kind of growing and organizing throughout the year. So I'm just wanted to ground us in this. This is what we talked about last month. If you were there, if you weren't, just a reminder, and we'll be expanding on this and giving some updates about new things that have kind of come up since then today. So I'm going to pass back to Sammy to talk through quickly some wins, things that have happened in the last month that are really exciting. So I think it's important to celebrate our wins. So take it away, Sammy.
Thank you, Harley. Yeah, and I was going to say, if anybody likes any of our wins or was there or was part of our wins, you can do the hands up, or you can put clapping hands in the chat, or the heart, anything you want if you'd like to respond. So the first of our wins is that internal communications is back up and running, so we can keep up to date with what is going on in the rest of Animal Rebellion with the internal newsletter. And if you don't have the link to that, then you can contact me or Harley or Liz or anybody who knows, and that we can get you sorted with the newsletter. So strategy has been announced for 2021, and like we were talking about last month, it's going to be massive with G7 and COP26 in November, and these are our two big focuses. So Brandalism has been really successful, and it's been our biggest Instagram likes, and also an increase in people joining and people across the UK and the world wanting to take part. So that's really excellent. This is really cool. XR featured Animal Rebellion and Speciesism in their newsletter, and that was going out to 200,000 people plus. So that's absolutely brilliant. We received more people joining as a result. We had an animal rebel who was in HS2 tunnel for 31 days, which is absolutely extraordinary. We had a small presence, Harley, was this like last time and this time? We had a small presence. We had people from Animal Rebellion supporting BLM and Sisters Uncut in the protests against Kill the Bill. And that was really powerful. And I think that is part of our desire to be movement of movements, and just, it's great. I was there and it was awesome. So we have local campaigns still going on for the councils, and that now has 39 groups and is growing every day. So that's 10% of UK councils are now being campaigned to switch. We actually had, let me have a look, Hackney has had a massive win. And And Harley, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I was told, is that with Hackney, they had asked for 3 days a week, vegan or vegetarian, for primary schools. They didn't get that. What they got was even more extraordinary. What came back was that 1 day a week, but then it's across all schools in the Hackney district, which is absolutely massive. I mean, it's 1 day a week, all schools across the Hackney district. That could save 92,000 animals a year and will save 490 tons of CO2, and that's just one district. So bravo to everybody who's been working on that. There's a coalition of animal rights organizations coming together to discuss uniting to mobilize for COP, which will be absolutely fantastic, because we want all groups. We want the climate groups and we want the animal justice groups to come together, and we want to be a part of it. We had 3 rebels took part in the solidarity actions with Palestine Action Group, and 2 shut down a weapons factory for a day and caused economic damage. They were both held imprisoned for a week, and they're now released, and they're both fine, aren't they, Harley? As far as we know, yes, we've heard from them and they're doing good. So yes, I'm very pleased to announce all those things, and I will pass on to Harley.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I think it's just so exciting, like all the stuff that's happening in different parts that different people are doing. So of course, there's always room to do better. There's always room for improvement. So there's some things that we put down here that have kind of come up as kind of topics that we can kind of work on and do better on in the coming months. So at the moment, the search is on for a new full-time or part-time culture coordinator. We've had, like the culture team has been struggling a bit lately to find people. It's such an important role. And that's something that we really need to, prioritize and find that person who's going to be able to step into that and really push and drive culture at Animal Rebellion. There's also been identified a need for some processes which capture how we make decisions about important issues. So that's really important and really kind of like happening at the moment. And all of these, if there's things that you think could be better, we can all help be part of the solution. Better communication channels are currently being worked on as well. So kind of improving communication between groups. And we are all crew. So if you see something that could be improved, we can all be part of the solution. So we can all make this happen. I see that Willow has had your hand raised. Do you have a question or a comment? Or maybe an accidental hand raise. So it's not a decision-making process. It's just identifying how decisions are made and trying to capture that. So like everything in Animal Rebellion, and everything goes through a consultation process, which means that all groups that are affected will be consulted and things will go to Anchor. So we just use the existing process for that. It's just more about capturing and identifying areas. But so moving on to the year in a nutshell. And that's a picture of a squirrel with a nut. So this is basically going to walk through quite quickly some things that have come up since the last strategy update, and hopefully talk a little bit about what we'll be doing, hopefully. And this will, of course, everything's subject to change, so things might change in the future, but this is kind of like what teams are working on now, what has been identified as kind of potential ways forward, and also drawing on what XR are planning and what XR are doing, as well as other groups. So this is a picture of, I don't know what, but basically I thought it was a good example of kind of the way we're trying to organize in what we're doing. So there's this idea of that we have, these really focused points of mobilization. So G7 might be one of them. There might be others as well that are kind of, we find over time. And when we're leading towards that, like we've done in the past with rebellions, we really concentrate all our energy onto that. So we, develop different ways for groups to be working on that. And we really kind of focus on pulling together. Then that leads to a bit of an explosion of activity and energy. And then we don't want to just lose all that. So we try and find ways of harnessing that back in and then refocus and figure out the next thing to think about. So like we did the strategy consultation back in December, we'll probably be doing something, well, we hope to be doing something very similar to that in around July, so after G7. So once again, you know, getting feedback, how can we do better? What should we focus on next? So, you know, everything that we're going to talk about tonight is kind of bearing that in mind, and that we always want that input and that constant communication flow. But there's some things that have been coming up that we really wanted to share with everyone. So last month, we talked about this idea of this kind of, back to the strategic pyramid, and this idea of like this middle section, this becoming a dominant part of the climate movement, has been something that's really kind of going well for Animal Rebellion. Like, we've been really improving our communication and our collaboration with environmental groups, with XR, and starting to see that shift of understanding that, you know, we can talk about animal agriculture, and we should be talking about animal agriculture, and also including our ability to show how animal agriculture fits into the bigger picture of climate justice. So yeah, it's seeing how that kind of, by influencing that kind of section, we can also impact those other strategic milestones that we're working towards. So everyone's part of the decision making. So yeah, everyone could be part. What I meant was that there are ways that decisions are made. So it's like showing how that happens, so everyone can be clear on how decisions are made. So it's not making a new way of making decisions. It's kind of like identifying where decisions are made and making that really clear and transparent, so everyone can be part of that. Because at the moment, it's been expressed that sometimes it's a bit confusing for, like, you know, where to go to have a conversation with someone about a certain topic, or where to go when you have a tension about something. So just making that clear is what I meant back in that bit. So it's not, if that makes any sense, just transparency and clear kind of ways of communicating. So yes, back to the strategic pyramid. So yeah, that's kind of been identified as a really kind of fantastic way of doing, of focusing, especially with COP26 and G7, when there'll be lots of groups there kind of working towards common goals. So as well, like, in a nutshell, we've got some potential messaging aims that have been coming out of a consultation process with a group called Public Interest Research Centre. So the messaging team is doing a consultation kind of process with them, and they're the kind of brains behind Framing Climate Justice, which is a really fantastic kind of look into how to talk about climate justice, and how to kind of get really kind of complex ideas across to, or like, the general public. So yeah, like things like potentially things like seeing animal farming and fishing included in XR's messaging, mobilizing, you know, our base of vegans and animal rights activists and connecting with them, and building coalitions with the global justice movement, and expressing solidarity through our messaging and improving on that. So this is a graphic made by the wonderful Rachel, who's in this chat, in this call. So thank you. And this is kind of a little bit of a outline of things that, you know, might be, well, probably happening for the first half of the year. So in April, this just happened last weekend, there was an action at the Department for Education. So talking about the National Food Standards, which currently kind of say that schools have to serve meat 3 days a week and dairy every day. So talking about how, you know, this should be changed. So yeah, this actually just happened. It didn't make its way onto our wins, actually. So that's a mistake. But yeah, that was a fantastic action. We had a giant Boris Johnson head made by a wonderful person in the arts team. So yeah, that's already kind of kicked us off into our actions. We also have coming up this weekend, which Sammy's going to talk about in just a minute, another action coming up. And then in May and June, we'll be having some other No Love in It fast food actions, which will be really exciting. And then towards the end of the first half of the year, we have G7 and kind of like potentially like a week of action before that, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on when we get to G7. And I'll pass to Sammy to talk about No Love in It a little bit.
Thank you, Harley. Well, all I know is that we are going to be doing something this coming weekend based around No Loving in It. And that is, it's going to be our build up to our bigger action, so our fast food action in May. This will be similar, not similar, but this is the same thing as we did building up to Arla. Basically, it's pieces put together to the puzzle so that we can gain people's interest. And I know that we're going to be postering. So there'll be postering happening. And I think on that other message, it said paint the streets. So I'm thinking that's going to be happening too. There'll be more information, like maybe tomorrow or the next day, I would say. Is that right, Harley?
Yeah, definitely. So it's going to be a local groups action happening hopefully around the UK using the posters that we have put out before. So yeah, really exciting. And I hope some people here are going to be involved. So maybe give a wave if you are, or put claps up so we can see who's going to be involved in that this weekend. So I'll move on now to G7. So yeah, G7, as Sammy mentioned earlier, is one of these points of mobilization for the year. So G7 is happening from the 11th to the 13th in Cornwall. The reason I put the 8th to the 14th is because what we're hoping to do, and yeah, again, I'll talk about this in a little bit, is to have, well, we have a camp already confirmed. So we're hoping to have a few days of training beforehand on the 9th and the 10th to kind of allow people to come together and meet each other and get ready. And then the actual conference will be 11th to the 13th. And then, yeah, like packing up and packing down the camp on the 14th. So when we're thinking about mobilizing for Cornwall, we're asking people to kind of save the date for June 8th to the 14th. And we're hoping to get as many people as possible in Cornwall. But also knowing that not everyone will be able to go there. So hopefully, like, you know, having actions around the country and maybe the world as well. So what is the G7? And I'll just say that these slides have been written by the wonderful Dora, who's been working very hard on the G7, building like connections with local groups. So yeah, I will not take credit for this. So G7, it stands for the Group of Seven. And this is the 7 most advanced industrial economies in the world. So it's Canada, Germany, Japan, France, the United States of America, Italy, and the UK. And yeah, the EU also has full rights and sits in the G7. And they also invite guest countries. So this year we have, I think, Australia, South Korea, India, and South Africa will be joining, but they don't have like voting rights, something like that. So yeah, it's the 47th G7, and it's held in Carbis Bay in Cornwall. And this is kind of some of the pictures of the people who will be attending. So why is it important? So the 7 participants of the G7 represent 70% of the global net wealth. It's an annual intergovernmental organization meeting. And what happens there is like, yeah, it's discussing kind of and acting in concert to help resolve global problems. And they focus on economic issues, so financial crises, monetary systems, major world crises. So this year, two of the main focuses for the G7 will be post-COVID recovery and preventing future pandemics. We have some answers for that, as well as biodiversity loss and the climate crisis. And this is like G7 is a historic kind of site of protest for many, many different issues, from anti-capitalism, environmentalism, feminism, socialist, LGBT, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a lot about, you know, power politics and climate in action. So there's going to be a lot of different groups there, and it's going to be a really kind of vibrant site of protest. So why should we be there? So going back to kind of our strategy consultation that I mentioned earlier, you know, this is a chance for us to grow leaders and build leaders and have this experience of making a camp and participating in some really amazing transformational actions. It's also a chance for us to mobilize and get connected as well. So build these coalitions. We're already working with like the Southwest Actions Group from XR, as well as other groups to kind of start building these connections and growing our chance to stand in solidarity with other groups as well. And also potentially as like a second tier aim, like it's a chance for us to do some cool actions and get in the media. So, you know, it's a chance for solidarity and global justice, building leaders and mobilizing and then capturing energy. So what's already happening? is that we're doing our best to understand local community and how to work together and taking part in the wider movement of movements. So XR have already been planning around this, and what they're kind of running with is this idea of that or their kind of overarching theme is this like drowning in promises, so that there's been too many promises and they're not good enough, and we need better promises. And they have a theme for each day of G7 as well, which at the moment, the first day is Sound the Alarm. The second day it's going to be kind of in Falmouth, which is another really key hub for G7. There'll be mass actions and marches, and the kind of messaging theme is probably something about like finance and piracy, climate piracy. And then day 3 is all hands on deck. So there's messaging work being done currently on what our messaging will be around this. But there's, some ideas of like, because there's a lot of talk about just transitions at the G7. So, we're thinking along the lines of, a just transition must be plant-based, as well as creating like holistic climate justice messaging, which shows how animal agriculture is kind of, and a shift to a just and sustainable plant-based food system can be at the center of, climate justice, and can be really part of creating this global solidarity. So we're in the early stages of planning, but what we're currently looking at is that in that week before G7, so the 4th of June, up until the 8th, when we're hoping to mobilize people in Cornwall, we'll be doing actions around London and other parts of the country. So, and hopefully some like local group actions as well. And yeah, we're collaborating with XR Southwest and other groups in Cornwall about how best we can work together. And we already have a camping area confirmed in Cornwall, which is about a 40-minute drive from Carbis Bay and very close to Falmouth, which is going to be a big hub. This is where all the media will be staying. So the campsite is a place called Cheyenne Farms. It's a vegan, organic kind of plot of land. It sounds really amazing. So yeah, that's going to be incredible and a really great place to kind of get to know each other and do trainings and all that. So yeah, if you want to be involved in like the planning of G7 and as well as kind of being in your own circles, like feel free to reach out and follow up email. So as well as G7, XR is kind of talking, and this is just being kind of communicated to us, that there's a potential rebellion being planned for towards the end of August, so August 23rd. So that's something that's on the table. Of course, like if that's happening, we would love to be part of that. And yeah, so that's quite exciting to think about as well. And as many of you may know, Vegan Camp Out finishes on the 22nd of August. So it might be a really good time to get a bus going down to the rebellion after that. I'm sure a lot of us will be there as well. So yeah, Vegan Camp Out 21st to the 23rd, or maybe I got those wrong. We're also thinking that, during the rebellion might be a really good time for an animal rights march. As many of you know, the official animal rights march was cancelled last year, and we've actually just received word from Surge, talking to them, that they're not planning on putting one on this year. And they've said to us that if we want to, go ahead, and they'd support that. So yeah, it could be a really great chance to bring everyone together in a big march for animals during a rebellion as well. So these are all kind of tentative potential things that are coming up. But yeah, I think really exciting potential pathways that we can take. And then finally, we have COP happening in November. And as Sammy mentioned earlier, there's been a coalition kind of formed externally from Animal Rebellion, which we've been invited to join, which is a collection of animal justice groups, and potentially planning something for COP. So that's quite exciting. And as well, like there's communications happening now with XR COP and other groups as well planning for COP. So there's going to be, again, a lot happening around COP, and hopefully we can find ways to be part of that. And yeah, this is just a little bit about what COP is and why kind of it's important to be there. So yeah, that's kind of like the year as it looks right now, and some of the key moments that have been coming up as kind of points of mobilization that we can hopefully use and act around. So next up, I just wanted to touch briefly on Feed Our Future before passing back to Sammy, I think. So Feed Our Future is the council's campaign, which has been going really brilliantly. And yeah, it's really exciting to see so much change happening and so many people doing this group. So, of course, while we have these points of mobilization happening, we also, already have these fantastic campaigns happening. So, this will keep going. There was actually, a council campaign intro talk happening tonight. So that's still happening. And if you want to get involved in that, like, now is a great time to get involved. So there's so many groups across the country doing this and demanding from their council that they serve only plant-based food, as well as changing schools to serve as much plant-based food as they can. So pass back to Sammy to talk about some other dates that are on the calendar, not from within Animal Rebellion, but from outside.
Thank you, Harley. So, yeah, coming up, we have, as well as what we've got, there is other dates such as Rebellion of One. And Rebellion of One is happening on May 1st. And I don't know if everybody knows what that is. It is basically organized through XR. And each person, so it'll somehow happen that one person here, there, everywhere, so times, say, thousands, will step into the road at midday on the 1st of May and sit down, and they will have a placard, one each side of their body, with their message on. So that's something to think about, and to think about whether you want to do that and be involved in it. Then we have the National Animal Rights Day, and that's June the 6th. So that's actually happening in London. It's not the march, and it won't have a march, but it will have it's a joining together and a kind of, I guess, ceremony, memorial feeling to it. It will begin with, and then it'll evolve into a celebration of speeches and, wins and things and talks, so that everybody can just come together and be a part of animal rights and be together in that. Yes, so then we have the Vegan Organic Camp, and that's in August 12th to the 16th. So that is in, where is that, Harley, the Vegan Organic Camp? I know it's somewhere.
That is also in Cornwall. I think it's actually at the place that we'll be camping.
Is it? Yeah, okay, because it's the Cheyenne Cultural Centre. Is that the same? Is that the place you mentioned? Yeah, that's it. All right, so that's happening. It can put like 200 up to 200 people, and apparently it's really beautiful organic land. You can book for 3 days. You can book meals and everything. So that's happening. The UN Biodiversity Conference, which is coming up in October the 11th, that's in China, and that's actually going to be looking at the post 2020 biodiversity framework and also the global biodiversity outlook. So whether we can do some messaging or something around that during that time, that's something we'll be thinking about. So what's next? Oh, this is me. Thanks, Harley. Do you know what? Maybe I didn't get this far on the slide. So G7 announcement and mobilization starting this week. So messaging briefing is going to be coming soon. On Monday, the 12th at 5:30, we have an all hands meeting. So anybody who wants to come to that, it would be marvelous, because that just means a place where you can say what you think, what you feel, what you want. And it's a get together, and that's really nice in how you're doing. So working on actions is happening now. Look out for Know Your Rights training, which we were talking about will be absolutely excellent, particularly at this moment in time where we're all feeling, or, I know I personally am feeling nervous about like where we're at in the world and how it is to get back out into the world. So I think a Know Your Rights training is really exciting at this moment in time. And it's time to think about what excites you and beginning to start planning. So if anybody has anything they want to say, we are here to talk. So we've basically kind of come to the end of our presentation, and it's over to you guys.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Sammy. That was quite a speed run through. So we will be sending out the slides and everything else after this, so don't worry about that. But yeah, it's just a chance to have a chat now about ideas, concerns, questions, suggestions, things that inspire you, things that just anything that comes up. And we'll stop the recording now so people can feel free to speak freely.